stand it?
Yes.
Oh.
And the new faculty, so, well, I have only been here. Well, Jason, you know, he's the new old faculty. Yeah, we will have two more which are not here today, Mihai and I'm telling them their first name, sorry, very unfortunate. The seminar, and I'm very glad to introduce to you Shadi Graf. We know each other from Penn State a long time ago. Well, not that long. But let me read his short bio.
Okay.
That he calls short bio. So Shadi is currently an acting Nuclear Regulatory Commission resident inspector at Three Island Nuclear Power Plant in Pennsylvania. Previous position at NRC include technical reviewer for the dry site storage and transportation systems for the Office of Nuclear Material Safety and Safeguards. Maybe I should take my glasses off. And technical advisor for the NRC headquarters operations center prior to the NRC, Shadi for U.S. Department of Energy Office of Nuclear Energy. He graduated from Penn State with PhD in Nuclear Engineering in 2013, Master of International Affairs, May 2012, Master of Science in Nuclear Engineering 2008, and BS degree in Nuclear Engineering and Engineering Physics from the RPI. And, well, this is the funny part about him. He was the recipient of 2 Department of Energy graduate fellowships and completed 9 internships at 3 national labs, International Atomic Energy Agency in Vienna, and U.S. House of Representatives. If somebody can give you an advice how to get an internship or fellowship, it's Shadi.
I'll be talking about that.
I was always amazed back in Penn State how he was able to do that.
And I will talk about that.
Yeah. Please join me to welcome Shadi here.
Thank you all very much. Thank you for the introduction, Professor Abramova. Very glad to be here. I enjoyed coming to campuses and talking to students. I have done it in the past. Full crowd here, and I remember I was forced to attend these seminars. There's 2 kinds of people who came, and because there were refreshments. But I trust you guys are here because you guys want to be here, because you guys are fabulous NC State students, right? So I know in the past, I've looked at some of the seminars you guys had in the past, and you guys have some amazing speakers, experts. I had the same thing when I was sitting in your shoes, listening to people. Probably only them and a dozen people in the world knew what was going on and what they were talking about. And it was always a struggle to stay awake and try to follow. So the way I designed this presentation is not any Greek letters. You're not gonna. It's not gonna be technical. Talk about modeling or coupling or neutron upscattering or anything like that. And I kind of broke out the presentation into 3 portions. The first portion, since I work with the NRC, I just want to tell you guys about the NRC. Maybe it may get a little boring. Many of you may know about it, but those who don't, if there's any undergrad and underclassmen or anybody else. And then the second part, and then during that, I'm going to talk about the current state of nuclear power in the United States, where it's headed, where it is right now. And the second part, I'll talk about the implications domestically, internationally in the U.S., what we do, what's going on in the world, other parts of the world. And then the third part, I want to focus on just internships, careers, what I think you guys should be doing, and some tips, because I'm going to give advice today that I wish somebody gave me when I was in your shoes, when I was a student. And that's going to be the 3 parts of the presentation. And just keep in mind, anytime you attend a presentation, no matter what it is, try to walk away with something you've learned, okay? You've learned something. Because I did an interview for an employer recently, and they asked me, well, name me something that our policy representatives are not aware of that you think is important and should bring up. And that was something that I'll be talking about today that I brought up. So hopefully if you walk away, just keep in mind that what you learned today or next couple of weeks or whatever, you're going to use that in your next interview, and it could be coming very handy. All right, let's get started then. Let's see. Okay, disclaimer. This is from Regional One Council at the NRC. The views discussed today did not reflect those of the government or the NRC or anybody else, and are mine and only mine, and especially because you guys are actually an NRC licensee holder for your nuclear reactor. So I was informed to make this disclaimer. Very basically, if I could just talk about the NRC at a very basic level for you guys. We were established in 1954 as part of a law that kind of promoted and regulated nuclear power and energy all under one roof for the military and civilian use. Some people thought maybe promoting and regulating under one roof was not a good idea. So let's just separate those two entities, and we were split up in 1974 to DOE and NRC. And we are an independent agency. So here's your first learning point. What does independent agency mean? There's many independent agencies in Washington. Environmental Protection Agency, the U.S. Postal Office, a bunch of them out there. And the main point of an independent agency is that they're independent of any political slugfest going on, and that these are critical functions of the government that are required to continue to operate no matter who's in power or so on. So we have 5 commissioners appointed by the president or the Congress, and no more than 3 could be from the same party. So usually our chairman, if there's a change of guard in the White House, that's usually going to be a new appointment, and it's going to be mostly affiliated with that party. Our budget, I'm going to get into this a little later. So something integrated into the regulations and by statutes that we recover 80% of our funding. So our funding for, I think, 2018 was $937 million. And we were obligated to recover 90% of that from the applicants and licensees we regulate. So we charge them on an hourly basis for inspections, for review applications, submitting approvals, and so on. So we cover, and what we So we have 4 regions, and each color is associated with the region. So region 1 is in King of Prussia. That's where I belong. I work in region 1. Region 2 is all these red plants. That's where North Carolina is. Region 3 is right outside of Chicago. So they kind of like inspect all these, responsible for these plants. Region 4 is in Arlington, Texas, and they're responsible for like the Midwest and so on. So I started in headquarters for 4 years. I was a technical reviewer for casks and criticality and shielding calculations. And then 2 years ago, I transferred over to Region 1, and that's where the rubber hits the road regarding to inspections. That's where we go out and inspect. So at every nuclear power plant, there are 2 full-time NRC staffers working, going to work every day, or just overseeing day-to-day operations at the power plant. Walking in there, doing walk-downs of the control room, sitting in any meeting we want, doing all kinds of things, observing surveillance tests, observing post-maintenance testing, observing All right. Sorry for that technical interruption. So we talked earlier that what's back in the U.S. dollar really? It's confidence, right? But what's the state of the U.S. economy right now? If I were to ask you guys, we're close to record high stock values, right? With the exception of last week, there was a small drop. We're record high in the Dow Jones, and we have record low unemployment. So what do you guys think the current state of the U.S. economy is? Good, bad, nay?
It's a big bubble affected by low interest rates.
Low interest rates, big bold interest rates. Yes, but common knowledge, conventional knowledge, if you go on CNBC, it's a great economy, we're humming along. All these numbers, we're in great shape. So this is candidate Trump in 2016 during a debate. We are in a big, fat, ugly bubble, and we better be awfully careful. He was debating. Usually they blame the other side of, you need to elect me, I got to save the economy. Fast forward a few years later, this was just earlier this week. It's like we have, our economy is very strong, despite the horrendous lack of vision by Jay Powell. He's the Federal Reserve Chairman, because he refused to cut rates more than he wanted to. For you guys to understand, the Federal Reserve determines how much the cost of borrowing money is. I didn't understand this concept when I was your age. For the past 10 years, because we were in this huge recession, like during Bush Obama, they cut them to zero, so to force investment and so on. So people took out this huge, institutions took out this huge money, low interest rates to borrow. Now you got the president saying, we have a strong, great economy, we should be cutting rates. No, the only reason why we cut rates 10 years ago out of a recession. So this is just the irony of all this. It's pretty bad out there. And if you look at alternative data, like the trade deficit is all-time high. So what are we at, like 20, billions of dollars a month? I think the Congressional Budget Office just came in last week and said we underestimated the amount of trade deficit we have. We actually exceeded our debt for debt limits for 2019. We already exceeded 2018 limits, and we still got 4 years left in the year. The liquid loans, it's I think exceeded. It's like approaching 7%, which is like 2007, 2008 numbers. Household debt all-time high. Liquid student loans all-time high. These are all like actual numbers going on today. So is this the sign of a healthy, good economy? So when our national debt was $5 trillion, Bush doubled it to $10 trillion. Obama doubled it to $20 trillion, and we're on pace for doubling again, on trillion if Trump gets elected again. So at what point is this going to stop, right? And that's only the national debt. What about corporate debt? Corporate debt is like $9 trillion in debt. And let me just give you a little case, just another indication, another data point. I call this the retail apocalypse. Look how many store closings we've had in the past 2 years. Toys R Us went out of business, Radio Shack went out of business. All these announcements. Walgreens is not here. Announced they're going to close 600 stores. Lowe's said they're going to lay off thousands of workers. Macy's last week in their quarterly returns are down 45% from last year. Sears is on its way to bankruptcy, closing a bunch of stores. All these closures. Is this a sign of a healthy, good economy? Some of you may say, well, it's all because of Amazon, right? Retail, online managings. But you got to all their loss is not really Amazon's gain, because another data point to look at is and the sales of Class A trucks, whether it's Amazon or anybody else that's buying these equipment, at one point or another, they're transporting them on truck. So there should be more gains in the truck, but we're not seeing those gains either. I'm going to pick on New Jersey because I'm from New Jersey, and it's a state I know most about. So United Van Lines is like a moving company, and they put out their data every year. They look out and how people move out. And they've their data, New Jersey ranks highest for moves out. More people are leaving New Jersey than moving in. And I can identify with that a lot because I'm from New Jersey. And I'll tell you why. Look at New Jersey's portfolio, for example. Property taxes are 2.4%, more than double the national average. Here in Illinois, because Illinois has more nuclear power plants than any other state in the country, and they also did a bunch of bailouts too for the plants. And North Carolina, look how low it is. So my family home in New Jersey, anybody want to take a guess how much? It's like a two-family home, maybe 1,800 square feet. Anybody want to take a guess how much in property taxes we pay? Well, you guys probably don't pay property taxes anyway, but how much your parents would be paying? 7,000. Anybody else? 20K? 45,000. No.
Where in New Jersey?
Northern New Jersey, Bergen County, right outside of New York City.
Like
30? No, it's $11,787. That same home, and I looked it up in numbers, I ran the numbers again yesterday, it would cost $3,000 in North Carolina in property taxes, same home. Income tax through the roof, sales tax, compared, funded pension plan. This is another interesting one. Over 60% of the pension plan in the state of New Jersey is not funded. So as compared to for example, over 90% of the pension plan in North Carolina. North Carolina is doing pretty well actually. It's like 7th best for funded pension plans. New Jersey and Illinois are like top 5 worst in the country. What does that mean? That means that in a few years there's going to be a bunch of firefighters, police officers, teachers, and state employees who are going to redeem their retirement, and the money's not there. And more people are leaving out than leaving in. They're moving into New Jersey. So where are they going to get the revenue from? So if they were to calculate how much liabilities each citizen would pay just to compensate for that loss, like each citizen in New Jersey would have to pay $16,000. In Illinois, it would be over $10,000. And you guys are doing pretty good, actually, just all under $1,000. You guys are over 90% funded. So the reason why I bring this up is because 3 nuclear power plants got a $300 million bailout by the state. Are you going to rely on the next bailout for the legislators to bail this out? Because they're gonna respond to their voters, all right? There's more voters who are police officers, firefighters, teachers, employees than there are constituents with those power plants. So those legislators are going to try to convince their voters: should we vote for a $100 million bailout for these nuclear power plants, or should we fund our pension, or should we fund the pensions instead? They're going to have to make some really difficult decisions in the near future. So the future of nuclear in the state of New Jersey, for example, instead of Illinois. And the reason why I bring up the economy and international trade and the global dollar, all this is intertwined. You got to understand, our domestic economy is very important for us to be successful internationally, for us to have strong nuclear power plants, for us to compete with everybody else. Manufacturing is important. Technology is important. Having a good fiscal policy system is very important. So again, what's backing the dollar? Confidence. Is the world still going to continue to have confidence if we're running these numbers? And I didn't count like $20 trillion in public debt, $9 trillion in corporate debt. I didn't count the debt of the pensions for each of these states. Over 50 states have over 30% underfunded. You could see this was published in Bloomberg. You can see the numbers. Where they're going to be looking out for bailouts, the state. Is the federal government going to bail them out? And I didn't count, for example, cities like New York City, for example. 75% of New York City's $975 billion deficit is due to pensions and other retirement liabilities. So there's a lot more debt out there that's not at the federal level. Okay, so that's the end of the second part of my presentation. And just want you guys, what I'm trying to intertwine is that our stance internationally is very much dictated by how we treat nuclear domestically. In nuclear, our stance in nuclear power, our influence in geopolitics internationally is very closely related to domestically. We have a strong economy, we have a strong supply chain, we have all this. We could influence and espouse and flex our muscles in the world. But if we continue on the path we are right now, there could be a run on the banks. I talked about gold, how people like to use gold. Keep in mind, for example, Venezuela had $1.2 billion worth of gold stored at the Bank of England. And now Venezuela is going through some really tough, difficult situations right now. And they requested their gold back. So U.S. government lobbied England not to give it up. England's like, nope, sorry, we don't support the Maduro government. We're going to bring Venezuela to its knees. So that's what happened with, that's why if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Keep that in mind. Bank of Bangladesh, they had over $100 million hacked from their SWIFT system. From where? From the Federal Bank Reserve of New York. Hackers got into the SWIFT. So when I remember earlier when I said gold can't be hacked, can't be frozen, can't freeze it in the SWIFT system, you can't do all these things. That's why people want something that's tangible, people want something controlled. Like you go right now to your bank and try to withdraw $10,000 and see what they'll do to you if you try to get $10,000 of your money. Go withdraw $5,000 today, $5,000 tomorrow, and $5,000 Wednesday. You'll be lucky if the bank teller doesn't fill out an SAR form. SAR is a suspicious activity report. Like, why are you pulling all this money? Why are you depositing all this money? Where's it coming from? So my brother wanted to buy a car at an auction. He did something like that, and he got a letter from his bank. You have to justify this money to us. So it's what's going to happen when it's collapsing? Again, it's going to be worse. There's predictions that it's not going to be a bailout. It's going to be a bail-in. Does anybody know what a bail-in is? Bail-in is when, well, bailout is obvious, right? They use taxpayer money to prop up the banks and they press it out. Bail-in is when they lock the system. And you go to your you're gonna wake up one day, go to your ATM or your bank account in your stock, and you're gonna call them like, I wanna withdraw my funds here today. Like, sorry, we can't do that. The government locked the system, you can't have your money. Well, we didn't steal it, we still have it, but they're gonna lock the system. And don't think that this hasn't happened before. It has happened in Greece recently. It has happened in Cyprus. In Greece, I talked to a Greek friend during their financial crisis 10 years ago. They couldn't withdraw something more than like 50 euros a day. Okay? India too. India about 3 years ago. India is a cash economy, and there's a lot of black market money. There's a lot of mattress money. You guys know what mattress money is? Like, you don't send it through the banks. So India needs some revenue. It's like it's going through a tough time. So what did the Indian government do? They said, all right, we're no longer accepting large currency bills as of this date. Go to the bank, redeem them for smaller notes. So now what happened, there was a rush on the banks, and you can see the pictures online, lines out the door. You redeem your larger bills for smaller bills, but this time there's a record of how much money you deposited, and this is how much tax we're going to be collecting. So this, and again, this is why people gold, because it's physical, it's natural, it can't hack, can't do that. Okay? Sorry? Oh, I'm sorry, running close on time. So this is probably the most important part, just career opportunities, just 3 slides. Looking for jobs. This is I'm sorry, I got carried away there for a moment. The reason why I wanted to be presented first in August is because this is what you guys should be doing now. You guys should be going to these websites and to these employers and looking for what they want, what they need, and what are the requirements, okay? If you current job postings, they want somebody who has MCMP experience or somebody who has Scale or Bison or something. Maybe this should be part of your senior design project. Maybe this should be part of a project you're working with a professor. Maybe this should be something you guys should be working on. So try to gain these experiences, put it on your resume, look, get an idea of what the market is looking for, and use your time as students to gain that expertise and just lay it on your resume. So make sure to do that. For those who are interested in being reactor operators at nuclear power plants, reactor operators, or RO or SRO, are very valued positions. It's the way to go usually. The way they do that, you need to understand that internally, when there's a reactor operator class, because they're all bargaining units, they recruit internally within the power plant. Like, all right, we have a power plant, or we have this class. It's 18 months training. You're going to be tested by the NRC, and we're going to give you a license and all that. It's like a really tedious process. But to recruit people from that class, they usually do it internally. So a lot of times you're not going to see external postings for reactor operators. You're going to see external postings for equipment operator, auxiliary operator, non-licensed operator, and that's the way to get your foot in the door. That probably takes 6 to 9 months to qualify. You just wait for the next reactor class. You put your name in the hat. With your nuclear engineering degree, you'll get a huge advantage. And as a matter of fact, you could jump to an instant SRO, which is a higher level, and you get paid more, you get bonuses, and so on. So don't be disencouraged when you see like, oh, that equipment operator, what does that mean? That's the way to get into that field, FYI. LinkedIn, usually utilities, vendors, government. Just start now. See what they're looking for. Try to prepare yourselves. Writing, communication skills. Everybody's looking for that. To you guys, that probably seems like such a trivial thing, but I can't emphasize how important that is out there in the real world. So you got to be able to have a story ready when you have an interview. What are your communication and writing skills? Can you prove it to me? Something you guys could do is publish a paper, work with a professor, collect his data. You could be the last name on that paper. Make sure you get your name out there and put it on your resume. Like, yeah, I publish papers. I know you guys are hosting an ANS meeting next spring. Make sure you put in for that presentation, because you're going to tell the employer, yes, I presented, I talked, I published papers. This is how I demonstrate my writing and communication skills. Analytical skills, like data analysis, like this, I made this myself. Modeled it using Bokeh and so on. Just trying to learn all these extracurricular analytical stuff is very helpful. I'm here till Saturday. If you guys want me to show you how I did this, it's very simple, very easy, and try to use all this information. You could also even use this data if you want, model it, look how much the cost of regulation, whatever. Just do something. Okay, real quick. I'm almost there. Qualified to be a reactor operator. I had a beautiful tour this morning. You guys anybody could qualify. I think it takes like a year process. The NRC comes and grades you guys, and you get qualified. By the way, one little side note: these reactor operators in nuclear power plants, what they tell me is that my NRC license operator licensing, is much more valuable to me than my master's in nuclear engineering. That's what one operator told me. It's much more valuable to him than anything in the world. And these are very valued positions to have. So if you guys want to go that route. So I just encourage you. You got to think of this. You're competing with the person next to you, and other students know what's going to make you different than anybody else. Okay, these are personal stories of mine. This is me about 7 years ago and 30 pounds or so ago. And the reason I did 9 internships, and I'm only demonstrating the ones I did with the Dennis Kucinich, congressman from Ohio, and IEA. The reason why I'm showing you these two is because these are the ones I got not through the traditional application process. These are the ones I reached out, and either by luck or whatever, I got a good position. They asked me to hire them. So this guy, I was part of the nuclear engineering student delegation. All the departments, I don't know if they still do that, but you kind of like a lobby week. So Penn State sponsored me for that. I went, after I finished my Penn State representative, I knocked on our other representative, and I just had a discussion with him. He's like, come work with me. So I encourage you guys, and this was like one of our alumni from my research program. I was asking about the internship program. He's like, I know nothing about it. Why don't you come work with me instead? So beautiful 2 months in Austria. It was a lot of fun. So I encourage you all to go into LinkedIn, find NC State alumni, anybody you're interested in, just reach out and send a simple message, see what happens. 9 out of 10 times you're gonna get rejected. The door's gonna be slammed in your face. Don't let that discourage you. You just need that one opportunity. And honestly, put a name, a face, send a personal message, you never know. And just do it, and don't hesitate. And find me on LinkedIn, friend me on LinkedIn, and go through my friends list, and if there's somebody you want me to make an introduction for you, I'll be more than happy to do that. So, and don't hesitate, just do it. For those of you going into government, background check. So this is a copy. I did a FOIA request to the Office of Personnel Management. So this is a copy for my background check. And I wanted to show you guys something. This is be on your best behavior, and this is called pay your rent on time. So I was at Penn State. I had a lazy roommate who I would pay my half of the rent, but he would never send it on time. He was always lazy. So every month we were always late. And when I went on to internships, I would pay it up front to my roommate. I'm like, make sure you get it to Janet. Janet is this wonderful 70-year-old woman who I only met twice in my life, but he never got the rent on time. He's like, well, it's no big deal because every time he delivers it, he gives her a rose. And he's like, it usually makes up. Little did I know, I did a FOIA request just for fun, just to see who your real friends are and what they said about you. So beautiful, wonderful Janet, look what she says about me. Like, they ask you, recommend with reservations. That was her recommendation when they asked, do you recommend Shadi for clearing? She's like, I recommend with reservations. But keep in mind, I hardly met Janet in my life. I always paid my share. I just never made sure it was big. So these small trivial things, like, don't let it come bite you in your behind in the future. Make sure you're on your best behavior. Make sure you're not, especially if don't think that you're going to reference your favorite professors and best friends for your background check, because when they come to do the background check, they're going to say, all right, name me 5 other people who know Shadi Grabe here. Okay, so they're going to branch out, okay? So just keep that in mind. There's the drug policy. Just be careful with that. Even though it's legalized in some states, it's still prohibited. It's not just check off. Depending on what job you're in, could be a polygraph test, so you'll be tested for that. I've never seen it in DOE, NRC, but other places I have. And some question they asked me recently, have you had any inappropriate exchanges in text messaging with social media and so on? That was a question I was asked. Luckily for me, when I was a student, Snapchat did not exist or was not popular. So I could easily say no to that. But you guys keep that in mind, okay? Oh, thank you very much. This picture is 2 weeks old. This is the Unit 2 of the TMI power plant. It's essentially a museum right now. And that's me. Thank you for your attention. I'll be more than happy to have questions. If we have time. It's up to you. I'm here till Saturday morning. If anybody wants, feel free to meet time today, tomorrow, Saturday morning, please.
So you mentioned interest rates. I know that Germany and Japan actually have some that are negative now. How do you think that will impact the larger economic, how will that impact economic policy here if interest rates are negative?
They're under a lot of pressure here in the U.S. to drop rates with the rest of the world. The U.S. is probably one of the only few places where we have positive interest rates, but we are on the path slowly to negative interest rates. It seems the yield curve has inverted. Usually, for those of you who don't know what that means, look it up at the time. But usually within 18 months of that inverting, there's a highly likely chance there's going to be a recession. So we bailed out the banks in 2008. and the banks didn't clear the balance sheet, who's gonna bail out the central bank? People may lose confidence in the dollar. This is why Bitcoin had this huge surge, because the people who developed that system were frustrated with central banks and this borrowing. And people are looking at other alternatives. By the way, gold is at a 6-year record high for all those of you looking for investments, and mining stocks. Check it out, and it's going towards that path. By the way, the numbers that I mentioned in the U.S., all this debt, it's much worse in China, much worse in Japan, and much worse in the ECB, Central Bank. So keep that in mind. Anybody else? Hopefully it was. Hope you guys found this very useful. Go ahead.
What do you think about the new players like NewScale or?
Yeah, as far as I know, I'm not involved in that. To the best of my understanding, that's the only in-house application we have at the NRC. I checked that schedule before I came here. I tried to reach out to the PM so I could prepare, because I was anticipating a question on that. So far, they are on track to having their safety evaluation report completed in 2019, unless there are any other open questions so far. And they plan, I think my understanding is to build a mock system, an INL, and have it operational by 2026. Now, why did I mention economy a lot? I don't know where NewScale gets its funding. I don't know the investors behind it. But if this system, we get into recession, it goes into crash, and whatever happens, people are going to be tightening their belts. Like are those investment funders going to still be continuing to invest, or they'll still continue to have money and investment stomach for that? So that's why when I talk about I spent a lot of time talking about the economy. This has direct consequences and stuff like that, in my opinion. Anybody else? I'm free till 6 today, and I'm here till Saturday. So, thank you guys.